No president of the United States has ever been removed from office by impeachment. But it's hard to watch the news these days without hearing the word. So what does it actually take to impeach a president? First, a member of the House of Representatives brings a resolution of impeachment, and that happens from time to time. Not a big deal in and of itself. Number two, the House Judiciary Committee would have to produce a majority vote to advance that impeachment resolution to the full House. Third, the full House would have to have a majority vote for the impeachment resolution. Fourth and finally, the Senate would sit as a jury judging the president and the impeachment resolution. And a majority of 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote to convict the president of bribery or treason or, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors, unquote. And if you're wondering what that last phrase really meant in the Constitution, don't feel lonely. People have been debating it for more than 2 centuries. The first attempt at impeachment involved President John Tyler in the 1840s. It didn't get very far, basically because the midterm elections of 1842 switched party control in the U.S. House, and Tyler left office after just 1 term. A far more serious impeachment effort was mounted against President Andrew Johnson in 1868 when he fired his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton. Congress stood with Stanton, mostly because the members of Congress just didn't like Andrew Johnson very much, regarding him as too sympathetic to the former Confederate states. Johnson was in fact impeached in the House, but he was not convicted in the Senate by 1 vote. For a full century thereafter, impeachment seemed something of a relic, but all that changed in 1973. Despite having won a 49-state landslide re-election the year before, Richard Nixon found himself embroiled in a scandal over a break-in at the Democratic Party's national headquarters during that re-election year. A Democratic majority in the House was prepared to impeach him with help from some Republicans. In the Senate, the sentiment against Nixon was even more bipartisan than it had been in the House. At the same time, Nixon's approval ratings were plummeting, and the president eventually felt it necessary to simply resign his office before the impeachment process could be completed in August of 1974. 24 years later, Democratic President Bill Clinton was impeached by a Republican majority House in the case of a White House intern named Monica Lewinsky, with whom he had been having an affair. Bill Clinton was charged by the House with perjury and obstruction of justice. Clinton's case then moved to the Senate, but unlike the background for Nixon's impeachment process, Bill Clinton's approval ratings were actually rising during that fall of 1998, and in the midterm election of that November, Republicans did remarkably poorly, so much so that Clinton's nemesis, Republican Newt Gingrich, was forced out as Speaker of the House.
For me to stay in the House would make it impossible for a new leader to have a chance to grow, to learn, and to do what they need to do.
They completed the impeachment process, nonetheless, in that body, but in the Senate, nowhere near 2/3 of the senators were willing to vote to convict, so Bill Clinton finished out his 2nd term in office. Some Democrats today have taken a lesson from that rather surprising turn of events. As much as those Democrats might welcome the work of Robert Mueller, the special counsel, they are concerned it might cost them politically in 2018 and 2020, especially if the public decides that President Trump is being persecuted. Thus, we hear the president frequently referring to the Mueller investigation as a witch hunt.
Witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt.
The entire thing has been a witch hunt.
And of course, no president has ever been impeached by a House controlled by his party, much less convicted in the Senate. That's why some Democrats would like to soft pedal all this talk about impeachment, at least until 2019, when and if they might have a majority in the House that could begin proceedings in the Judiciary Committee, if there were evidence of crimes having been committed. Of course, some Republicans also see the prospect of impeachment proceedings as a wonderful motivational tool for their own voters. They see saving the Trump presidency as the best way to keep Republicans turning out at the polls. And I'm Ron Elving at NPR. Thanks for coming to my office hours.